Another film I watched this weekend was Pig, the 2021 film starring Nicolas Cage and co-written and directed by Michael Sarnoski. It's the story of a man living in the forest near the city of Portland in Oregon. He lives in squalor and has only companion is a large pig that hunts for truffles with him. Every week he's visited by a man called Amir who buys the truffles from him and attempts to make conversation. But our character is completely disinterested and ignores Amir, simply taking the money from him and various supplies that Amir buys on his behalf. However, one night his cabin is attacked and the pig is abducted. So our character named Rob walks into the wilderness, finds the nearest diner, calls Amir and gets him to drive him into town so that he can hunt down the people who took his pig from him. Superficially, it feels very much like a John Wick story. The basic setup is very much like John Wick, a withdrawn man, very isolated in and of himself, little contact with the outside world. The dog is stolen by outside forces and he goes to take revenge, except he's not interested in revenge. And when it becomes clear who our main character is, what relationship he has to the world around him, the film becomes much more interesting. We find out that Rob was in fact a world-class chef who ran a very successful restaurant in Portland, and the rest of the restaurant community regards him with something approaching awe. He withdrew back into the wilderness, seemingly after the death of his wife, and now returning to this environment, he cuts a strange figure. He dresses very shabbily. He has long hair, a long beard. He's repeatedly injured and makes no attempt even to clean the blood off himself. As he pursues leads and tries to find his pig, he doesn't beat information out of people. Rather, he just talks to them. He encounters an old colleague of his, a line cook whom he fired after 2 weeks because he was overcooking pasta. And that cook is now running a restaurant with concept cuisine and deconstructed dishes, and Rob is unimpressed. And he tells him very softly and quietly that when they spoke years earlier, this chef had told him that his interest was opening a traditional British-style pub with classic pub food made with something of a different twist. His signature dish was going to be Scotch eggs with a honey mustard sauce. And he just manages to hone in on the things that will open a person up. Rob is an expert in food. He can, over several times in the film, recreate dishes entirely from memory and is an extraordinary chef. And he understands the connection between the sensory experience and the emotional connections that we make to food and to the meals we've had, the people we've shared them with. It goes in the opposite direction to anything you would expect from a film like this, and I found it to be far more interesting because of that. It's possibly Cage's finest ever performance. He himself regarded as probably his best. It's a small, quiet, contained performance. There's so much pain and so much weight that he gives his role, and one would expect in a film like this that he would have the histrionic moment where he goes around screaming. He doesn't. He never raises his voice for any reason. His relationship with Amir is very interestingly and very cleverly drawn, and you have a really strong partnership on screen between Cage and Alex Wolff. It's a very, very well-written script, and very sensitively written and very sensitively portrayed on screen. It's a real treasure of a film. I was very surprised, despite its strong reviews, at how impressed I was by it. It's extremely good, and to say very much more is to spoil it. But it's far from the sort of revenge movie that you would expect. It's something much more thoughtful and emotional and compassionate and empathetic and contemplative. And as a result, I think I'd recommend it very highly indeed. I've already had to rewrite my top 10 of 2021 to accommodate it and award Nicolas Cage as Best Actor. But I think it's very, very highly recommended.